Hey everybody, I'm Alex P. Taylor,
And I'm Meredith Kropik.
and you are listening to a very special episode of Realitypus right now. We are interrupting our two-parter with Captain Kerry because we got a call from a good friend of mine from season 11 with some concerns and things that she wanted to talk about, and we want to make sure she has a voice and a platform to kind of uh,
Say
revert.
her piece. Yeah.
Correct,
Yeah.
exactly. So what we're gonna do is pull on season 11's star of the show, Barbie Pascual.
Hey guys,
Hey
thanks so much
Barbie,
for having me on here.
I
Thanks
love
for
it.
thinking of us.
Of course, you guys are personal friends, and just so excited about this podcast.
Thank you so much for being on. And we were really just with you a week ago. Oh, look at this.
And
Oh,
got the
girl.
Yes,
merch.
that
Branding,
was
branding, merchandising.
yeah, one of your birthday gifts
Realitypus,
for sure.
baby.
Yes, I love it. So happy birthday again. We were just with you in Miami, celebrating with you on the charter that you booked for all of the attendees for the party, which was really amazing. We got to see so many different people from below deck on that charter, which kind of speaks to the level of friendships that you have with them now and kind of this below deck family that's forming.
Yeah, it was really such a great party. Thanks for flying down. Both of you were a great addition to the party. But yeah, I
And
mean, it's just
Brandon,
so,
yeah.
and Brandon, of course.
Yes, yeah.
He's
Uh,
fun.
but I mean, it's beautiful. It's beautiful to have all the below deck girls at my party. You know, we were all in different seasons, different years. Nobody was on the same show together, and we have this bond that we found within just experiences that we had, or just having, all of us living in Fort Lauderdale. So we formed this beautiful, beautiful like sisterhood. So
I
I
love
was
that.
So
excited.
nice. Mhm.
I love that. And that's, typically, people will try to pit girls against girls in TV shows, and it just shows in real life as well. You have built these really wonderful friendships, which is amazing. But we want to address why we're hopping on this call right now. Do you want to give us a little summarization of what either triggered you or what upset you to a point of saying, "Hey, I want to kind of do a special podcast with you right now to talk about these things."
I was really conflicted about doing this too, because I have taken the moral high ground as far as it goes. Since the show wrapped, I haven't spoken negatively about any of the crew members. Maybe Ben, but
Well,
and that's just really called for,
yeah.
to be honest.
No
But
comment.
outside of Ben, I really have not. I've never spoken about Kyle and or the other cast members. I'm not going to get into the names.
Yeah.
And I really pride myself in that. That is something that I like hold true to myself is okay, whatever they say, I'm not going to say anything back.
Hmm.
Mhm.
But I just think that Kyle came out with a podcast, and just the things that he said and the things that are going on with other cast members within the show. It's time for me to like actually like have my say in it.
I
Yeah.
couldn't agree with you more. And so Kyle was recently on another Below Deck podcast, which, you are actually a fan of that podcast as well. And it's a great podcast, but some of the things that Kyle said on the podcast were alarming in some capacities, correct?
Extremely alarming. I love another Below Deck podcast. I've been on podcast, and when I was on that podcast, I didn't say anything about Kyle.
Mm.
Right.
And so those are the difference in morals right there. So it's nothing against the podcast, but the things that he was saying just as a human being is honestly very alarming. And I think that as reality TV stars or as Bravo, people that represent Bravo, we should hold ourselves to higher standards.
Well, let's break it down then, in
Yes.
terms of what was said on the podcast that maybe we want to dissect a little bit. So the first piece that we talked about, Meredith, what was that first piece that we wanted to mention?
Well, why don't we ask Babs over here? Is it okay if I call you Babs?
Of
I
course.
Yeah, I feel
won't.
like does anybody else call you Babs?
There's
Because
very few people that call me Babs,
okay,
but I
I'm
don't mind.
like, wait,
As long as it's
It's
not
in like the
Barbara.
vein of Barbara Streisand in my mind.
okay,
It's like the highest compliment, maybe.
okay, okay.
You can
So
call me
what is the number one thing that you would like to start with via what happened?
I mean, it was just so much, right? Like the whole idea of coming out with a podcast 4 or 5 months after the show aired, and most of it being based on me and all of the things that I did or did not do on the show is just so bizarre to me. So I don't even know how to start, but I guess the most repugnant part of the podcast was when he diminished me to the level of saying that I'm trying to find a proper way to say this because it's so grotesque. I don't even know how to say it in a proper way. Saying that like he was just using his other head when he was with me.
Right, right.
Like
And
that was the reason he was doing all of the things he was doing.
and
Yeah.
shut the F up piece as well. That was something that you had mentioned as well was
I want to get to that, but I want to first start with this main piece, right?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
as a woman, and also, I'm not here to push feminists, or I'm not a feminist myself. Like, I'm not trying to push any kind of
But if you were
political.
a man, this probably would not have played out in this way.
I
Yeah.
don't think it's an acceptable way to speak about a woman, and I think it's very weird to say such a thing after having a 6 month relationship with me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because we were together for about 6 weeks on the show, and then he lived with me in Miami for 2 to 3 months. So for
After
him,
the show ended.
after the show, so for him to come out and say, "Oh no, I was just thinking with my," is just wow. I mean, it's very telling.
So the
Um,
timing feels important. Do you think there was a reason for the ex post facto now versus if he felt that way, why he didn't say that initially?
that's a massive question. I mean,
I
he
know,
must
I'm
just be
sorry.
so bored. He must just be so bored. He must. I don't know. There was no other questions in the interview except for about me.
Yeah. Well, and I will say, and this is in no way being on board with the behavior. It's not an excuse at all. But I watched the YouTube version of that podcast, and baby boy looked like he had been enjoying a drink or two, and he did on camera. And then he rolled a blunt and started smoking it. So I'm not saying that makes it okay at all, but do you think there's any part of it that maybe he leaned into it more than he would have had he not been doing that when he said the heinous things that he said?
Can I say one thing before you answer that? Is that I've heard a saying my whole entire life, and it's the drunken word is the sober word, right?
Right.
So if what you're saying in terms of him being on another level or intoxicated, those are, and from that saying alone, it's saying
Right.
that's how you really feel, and that's giving you kind
Sure.
of the open door to be able to say all of those things. So
But I
sorry to
do think saying it in a public forum where she is obviously going to receive backlash about it, maybe I would
interrupt.
like to hope, and who knows, and I hope you don't take this as me defending him because it 100 billion% is not, but had we been sober, would we have said those heinous things in a public forum where you would get backlash that you don't deserve and is none of anyone's business?
I think he's so off the rails of what's morally correct that he would
Yeah.
say it sober or drunk.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it obviously had to do that he, is a little heightened, but I think his moral compass is so
Right.
messed up that it
Yeah.
really didn't make that much of a difference to the fact that he says, I said, shut the F up, and he says the real word. I'm not going to, curse on this podcast, but he says, that's just a Scottish thing. Or
Right.
splashing is just a Scottish thing. So he boxes his actions into, oh, that's just a Scottish thing. But I've had many messages from Scottish people saying, hey, I'm Scottish and I don't disrespect women. Hey,
Oh,
I'm Scottish and
Right.
I don't flash. So,
Right.
it's just at what point is he held accountable for the amount of things that come out of his mouth that are just morally incorrect?
Right. Yeah. That makes so much sense. You can't just throw an entire culture under the bus for one
No.
person's
And in
like,
the podcast, he said, I'm not even Argentinian, I'm American. So he's like now making up a new ethnicity for me.
oh
It's
my
right.
God.
now I'm an American. It's just the amount of lies that are spewed through this podcast is baffling and out of nowhere because 4 months ago, this guy was inviting me to dinner.
Right,
So
right.
that's an interesting. So that was
Twist.
shortly after the season ended. Um,
Shortly after the season ended,
and you get a
after we
text
broke up
that
four
says,
months ago,
yeah,
I
that
get a
says.
text saying, "Hey, I'm in Miami. If you fancy a dinner, let me know."
So this is someone who still is, interested in you, still wants to connect with you,
I,
or what do we think's happening here?
I don't know what his
Yeah.
game is. I definitely don't think he's interested in me because this is not how you speak of somebody that you're interested in.
Yeah.
But I don't get the game of 4 months ago texting me, inviting me to dinner, like everything is fine. And then now going on a podcast and saying just dehumane, bizarre things that make no sense. He holds himself accountable for absolutely nothing.
Hmm.
And it's just like, okay, I have to keep being quiet. I've never said anything. I've never spoken out on him. I don't speak out on the things that happen privately with him.
Even if
Because
you have like just cause to have done so, you chose the higher road.
I had to.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I had to. There's legal matters that had to happen through some stuff that he decided to do. Like this,
Well,
the amount of things that this guy has done is
Yeah.
it's pushed me to this breaking point of coming out and saying, hey, when's enough enough?
Yeah.
and speaking of kind of that, for sake of legal matters, not talking about things, there was something else that you had thought maybe you wanted to talk about, but because of maybe legal ramifications, you decided not to. But I saw that and I was like, oh my gosh, wow. But that's your choice in terms of like whether or not you want to say anything about that or not.
So my lawyers right now have advised me not to because I'm just kind of waiting to see how that whole thing plays out.
Okay.
But I mean, like I said, for the amount of things that this man has done wrong, this guy, because he's not a man, has done wrong, is just it's enough. And I wish him the best. I know that now he's striving to be a porn star, which
Do we believe that? I'm not
I
sure.
mean, if that's the
uh,
case, I mean, right?
so our morals don't align in any way, and they never
Yeah.
have aligned in any way.
So do
I
you,
did post bikini pictures. Okay, can you
yeah,
imagine?
right. Do you regret the relationship you had with him on the show or at the end of the show now?
It's such a hard thing to say that I regret it because at that time it was very helpful for me when I was going through because that was the whole experience of the boat was more of this stuff that's happened in the rapping, right? Of me getting
Yeah.
attacked by everybody. And I've since post filming, Ben's come after me. Other people have said things. Kyle obviously is now saying things. So, it just never ends. But at that time, my relationship with Kyle was, helpful for me. But
Yeah.
obviously, seeing all the things that transpired after, even in this podcast, he said that he stayed in a hotel room with Zandy post filming in Miami. So when we wrapped, they flew to Miami and him and Zandy stayed in a hotel room by themselves.
And that was right after you leaving and exiting the boat, which, that's you live in Miami. So you were actually in that area. Um,
But
wow.
also, so on the podcast, he claims, and who knows, to be a fly on that wall, dear Lord, that it wasn't sexual in nature, but to you, given the social happenings that had just come out, it did not matter. It just felt overly disloyal, maybe for you.
I mean, to be dating this guy on TV for as long as I was, and for the filming to end with a fight, with when Zandy's saying things to me, and for this guy to later go stay in a hotel room with
Right.
her when
Mhm.
he's in the same
Regardless of,
city that I'm in,
Mm.
yeah,
regardless if it's sexual or not,
yeah,
is a bizarre thing. And I never even exposed this kind of stuff because again, I always take the high road. He just now exposed himself with this bizarre stuff, and he turned it in his misogynistic turn of, well, Barbie got mad at me for staying in a hotel room with Zandy.
So I would say too, I don't think it was a sexual thing. No, knowing Xan
Knowing Zandy,
well,
yeah,
yeah,
I love Zandy, by
I
the way.
don't, right.
yeah.
Yeah. And I also too, like, um, you know, uh, having gone through this experience with you in a shorter capacity, being on the charter, and having individual relationships with different people, I would say I don't think that it was sexual in nature. I do think Sandy's a great person. I still do.
Right.
But
But regardless,
right. I just want to disclaimer that
It's
because
just a weird thing to
yeah,
do. And it's a weird thing to announce 6 months later in a podcast for no apparent reason at all, except for to try to make it like, oh, and she got mad at me for another thing.
right.
I don't know. The way his mind works doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. Um,
And that, I mean, I guess, and I do
that's
appreciate
fair.
when I just asked, do you regret the relationship? Do you regret it? And I think you're still like, you potentially care about him still, right? I mean, or no, am I off on that? Like,
this was a person that I cared about, and this was a person that we shared, a lot of months together.
right.
A lot of things that did really happen. So, if that situation for him was what he said, it was just him thinking with his, then that's fine. That's his story. But I had actual feelings. So for him now to come out and speak the way he does is obviously very hurtful.
Right. That
Um,
must be the worst part is like we needed each other or had a great time and we're there for each other then. So ex post facto to
Mm.
kind of betray even the memory of what actually happened must be tough.
it's humiliating, it's embarrassing, and this is why I'm finally coming out and saying something. I've never made a podcast saying anything negative about him or talking about our story, even though I have so much. I have
A lot of
Yeah.
so many
material.
receipts.
I mean, you're
I
being really respectful to him still. I
Yeah.
would say you're
Those
coming
are my morals and values.
right. You are a class act, and I'm seeing that even I've seen it a million times over, but especially here in this interview, like you're still in a way you care about him, you're protecting him in a way,
Being
just like that.
diplomatic, but still
Yeah,
addressing her feelings.
yeah, and I appreciate that.
And I
Yeah.
just want like other below deck people to just, and not that I'm any kind of moral high ground, everybody, we've seen my show.
I
Okay.
love it.
I get crazy. I'm not here to preach anything, but
I think it's
I
batshit
get
crazy.
crazy on TV.
Yeah. Yes.
Right.
This is real life. There's people that are already hating on us. We have to
Right.
stand together. We don't have to be doing. There's
Yes.
another below deck person that was selling her experience, she called it,
Yeah,
with
let's talk about
one
that.
of my close below deck friends, which I'm not going to say because I don't want to bring light to it. She was
Yeah.
selling her experience with her other below deck lady for $10 online.
Yeah.
I
To your
also know
point,
that person. Yeah.
there's so much going on with the trolls and the haters to begin with who don't know you, but just have watched the show. It would be nice to, and I imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, no one comes out 100% unscathed from this situation you were all in. Even the best of the best,
Mhm.
whatever. Everyone's always getting unnecessarily and without all of the information criticism from the world. So to your point, it's like no one's perfect. We all did what we did, but why not unite in the face of enough people already trying to be unpleasant and emotionally destroy us?
100%. Listen, I'm not going to bring up the name, but when certain someone got a bunch of messages, he had to turn off his comments on his Instagram because he got so much hate for how he treated me. I reached out to that person directly via text message and said, how can I help make this better? I didn't go on my Instagram and make it worse.
Mm.
Right.
When everything with Zandy happened, I made a video publicly saying me and Zandy are friends. It's all good now. I never put fuel and fire when it comes to social media
Yeah.
Mm.
because I think
There's
we need to
enough
be better.
gasoline to go around.
We
There's
need to be better.
enough
Mhm.
keyboard warriors out there. And I mean, that is one of the pitfalls to being on reality TV as well, that you are suddenly judged. You are a character in their mind. You're no longer a real person. And it gives people this kind of freedom to say really cruel and mean things sometimes. And I think one of the things that I really appreciate about this podcast and where we're going is I want to give people that have been on reality TV shows a safe place to be able to say what they want to say and to not feel that judgment and to not feel disrespected and to have a voice
Right.
where because once a show ends, the story stops there. There's no longer a chance for your voice to keep going unless it's your social media channel or your platforms, correct? And
Right.
to me, this is a really and knowing you personally as well, and knowing how good of a heart you have, and just seeing you grow so much since the show as well. It's been an honor getting to know you. And when you called
It's so
and
sweet.
said, listen, this is important. Like, I need to address these things. I need to talk about this. It wasn't malicious. There wasn't any kind of negativity to it. It was saying, I've had enough. I feel like I need to express myself now. And
Yeah.
that's why we want to give you this platform to really say whatever you need to say at this point. I know you had mentioned kind of a situation that was going on with Captain Kerry and Ben. That was another thing that maybe was, it's not personally involving you, but just in terms of those, again, things that are happen after the show and why are they happening after the show? So I'm going to pass it back over to you just to, I want to give you that platform.
And that's another thing, listening to the podcast, Kyle's talking about how Ben wants to come out and change the hierarchy of yachting, which is just a joke in itself because the hierarchy yachting has been established for years.
For a reason.
For years. There's all
Yeah.
reason. There's a reason, right? And
Yeah.
if even the fact that he was preaching this, just, I don't know what to say. But anyway, Ben wants to change the hierarchy, and his way to do it is to come out, also make a podcast months later after the show. I don't know what it is. I think they just wake up and they're like, how can we get views today? I don't it's just out of nowhere. But okay, so he comes out with a thing totally degrading Captain Kerry, saying all these terrible things.
Who is a good friend of ours too. Like, we
Captain
love
Can't
Captain
say
Kerry.
enough about
Love
Captain
Captain
Kenza.
Kerry.
Yeah, we all do.
So is that how he's going to dismantle the hierarchy in yachting? By talking poorly about Captain Kerry? This is just what I mean. Well, let's stop with all this nonsense. Keep what you have to say about each other on TV. That's why we're on TV. That's why there's a TV show. That's the fun of it. But when we're in real life, let's be better.
Well, and I have a thesis, and correct me if I'm wrong. Also, if it's production, we're not supposed to talk about it. That's fine too. Just give me a heads up. But in my mind, if you're doing that much later, I think the people doing that in their hearts are like, well, I'm not going to be back on the show anyway, for whatever reason, political, behavior wise. So this now is the best way for me to feel like I'm still staying relevant, knowing that for whatever reason, I might not be invited back.
I mean, I think it's definitely the highest relevancy he had in the last season was me. I'm not sure what other storyline he did have besides the fact that he couldn't keep his pants on. So I'm not
Right.
surprised that everything he has to talk about is me and all the questions are about me. Will he do another season? I don't know. That's not up to me, but I hope he does because I hope that the world gets to see this side of him that I unfortunately get. Because everybody just keeps praising him and putting him on this really, really high horse. And it's just baffling to me that they're missing the core values that he stands for, which are none, actually. He stands for nothing.
Well, with that said, there's something I know. There's something that we do every episode of Realitypus that we have here. It's a card. It's Tentacle Talk. It's 8 questions or 8 tentacles that kind of will sum up your season. So we're gonna pop these questions over to you if you'd like to answer them quickly. Great. If you want to kind of go into them a little bit more, we'll do that as well. But this begins the Realitypus Tentacle Talk lightning round.
Tenty talk.
Tenty talk, as they said. So Tentacle 1, who was the villain of your season on Below Deck?
I think I was the villain on my season.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, everybody hated me, so I must have been.
I didn't hate you. And I actually want to say that when we were talking at the bar, during filming, we had a really awesome talk that was kind of separate from other crew members and other charter guests, and it was just us connecting, which I think was really like the spark of a really great friendship. So thank you
Okay.
for that talk. It was definitely wonderful.
That was a life-changing talk at the
It
time.
really, I mean, honestly,
Oh, guys, I love that. Well,
it
and I
was
will
really
say too,
special.
like,
That was a special conversation we had.
Yeah,
yeah,
it really was. It really
I'm
was.
ha
It
I'm
made such a
happy.
difference for me in that day and what I was going through.
Yeah.
that's so sweet. But
Well,
what maybe people take away from a show as a snapshot of someone doesn't reflect probably ever like where their heart is and who they are. So I think that that was an evolved answer for you to throw out there, but at the same time, who knows who's really the most terrible person at the end of
I
the
think it's how you carry yourself after and
Yes.
what
yeah.
you're doing with your platform and how you and what you say on these podcasts and what you say when you go to watch What Happens Live and sit next to Andy Cohen. That's when you show your character.
Ugh, I can only dream.
Well, you never know someday. So Tentacle 2, who was the hero or MVP of your season?
Either Captain Kerry because he kept me like, he saved me. You know what? I'm gonna have to go to Captain Kerry. He saved me
Oh,
on season. Captain Kerry.
Which again, what a great guy.
What a
He,
great guy.
he's
we've
an
interviewed
advocate
him.
for everyone.
He really
Yeah.
is. I mean, caring, understanding,
That's a good
just
one.
the whole 9 yards. I mean,
I
meeting him
love that.
in person was absolutely wonderful. Tentacle 3, who was the most underappreciated or the underdog?
I would probably say that was me. I was
Yeah.
definitely underappreciated. I definitely worked really hard and didn't get that appreciation. So we worked past that though.
Yeah. Well, I've said this on another podcast, which I was recently on Above Deck podcast.
Love them.
Your tablescapes were stunning.
Magic.
And I needed to, especially every time, you did a different table, I was like, oh my God, let's give Barbie a round of applause for
I
that.
would love it. He would
Yeah.
come upstairs and he'd be like,
Yeah,
"Wow,
Slow
this
clap.
is so,
yes."
I mean, Christmas, New Year's Eve, they were such knockouts.
One of
Like,
my favorite
really,
tables.
that also makes me think you were the underdog because you should have your own tablescape business at this point. Like,
Ooh.
We
just,
are having that in the work.
yeah, you
Tablescapes
definitely
by
should.
Babs.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Subscribe.
amazing. Tentacle number 4. What was the funniest moment of your season?
Probably when I fell flat on my face during the murder
Oh,
mystery.
during that murder mystery. Oh my
Thank
God.
God for those granny panties.
Oh my God. Is that
My
the one
dress
where
went
they,
right up.
yeah, that's the one where was Fraser the one that was murdered, maybe? Or
I
who?
think so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that was a really great episode as well. That was before the one we were on came on. How about this one? I mean, this kind of what we talked about. What was the most heinous or cringe-worthy moment?
Everything having to do with Kyle.
It's like it goes both ways sometimes though, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like
Yeah.
yes to that, but also at the time,
Cringe to watch, you know what I mean? Like
yeah. Well, speaking about
I literally watch it between my fingers. I'm like, no.
how is that for you though when you're watching yourself back on TV? This isn't a tentacle talk question, but I think it's important. Like, is it weird to see yourself on TV? Is it weird to hear your voice? I hear people say that sometimes, and
It is weird, but it's kind of like a therapy. Like I watch it and I'm very, critical of myself. I watch and I like really listen to what other people say and think, does that hold value? Does it not? It's really cool to see yourself in a third person, and it's one of the best things that Below Deck has given me, like the possibility to, you never really get this opportunity to see how
yeah.
you function 24/7.
Yeah,
Well,
self-reflect. And I think there's two schools of thought on that. Like from what I've garnered by talking to other reality TV people, like some people just for their own mental well-being need to like one and done it. But then there's also value in watching it back and listening to yourself and analyzing your behavior and like, what can I do better as a human being? What are my strengths though as well? Like what did I do great? So I think I understand both sides, but yeah, it's nice that you can look back despite, how it might make you feel modern day and
yeah.
still be able
Yeah.
to take that into account and learn from it.
I
Yeah.
think too, thinking about, and this is something I want to ask you, Barbie, again, not a tentacle question, but when you have cameras on you, 24/7 and they're following you around and you're in this mix of like really hyper excitement, filming other people you've never met before. When the filming stops, how does that feel? Is it kind of like a high that suddenly drops down really low? Like what's the vibe that you get from when like as soon as you walked off, the boat?
No, I mean, I put myself in like isolation after. What I really was, it was like a month that I put myself in my apartment, didn't really leave, didn't really have a lot of friends come over. It's just kind of like you finally have your privacy. You want your privacy. It's a different feeling. Sometimes I look over my shoulder expecting there to be a guy with a huge camera. Like
Mm,
humans can get used to the craziest things, but your body gets used to this. Like you get 100% used to a camera. So coming home, it's just kind of like everything was kind of getting reaccustomed to having
yeah.
privacy.
I
Mhm.
have a friend of mine who was in jail, and
That's
she
similar.
said,
Honestly,
well,
that's
but
pretty
the thing
close.
is, she said that when she
She,
got out of jail, she needed to be alone because she didn't
Mhm.
like it was society, like everything around her just seemed so like too much for her to handle almost. And
yeah.
she needed to isolate herself for a little bit as well, to kind of process all of the things that happened.
That makes
So
sense.
not saying so much that reality TV is like jail, but maybe in some capacities,
Not
Yes
too
and
far,
no.
it's a
you know?
similar. Yeah, it's a similar. Back to the Tenty talk though. Who showed the most change or growth?
I would say me, honestly. I think I changed and grew the most. At least I tried to.
Yeah,
I
no, I
mean,
mean,
I don't think I would have lasted till the end if there was no change and growth because I started pretty feisty, but I feel like I started railing it back.
you definitely had a huge arc, from when you started into who you were when you left. And I think you'd been going through so much in terms of what was happening with Fraser and what other things that other people were saying, and then kind of the
It
relationship
was
that
hard.
built. There was a lot of things
It
going
was
on.
a lot.
That was a lot for you to deal with.
And I'm
Oh,
on reality TV for the first time, and you're getting
Yeah,
filmed 24/7, and
yeah.
like, there's a lot, right? And I'm
yeah.
dating this Scottish guy, and I mean, it was never not something happening. So,
Well, and you had your
it's a lot.
whole like familial background situation too, which I think
Mm,
that speaks to part of, the change in your mind, whether good or bad. This was something that was not part of your value system initially. But then like took a leap of faith and then you discussed and reacted accordingly. But
Yeah.
that
And
does
look where it
show.
got me. And look
mm.
where that leap of
Oh
faith
no,
got
don't
me.
say that.
But really, look where it got
No,
me
I
to a
know.
man who now goes and makes podcasts and says these kind of things. So,
Yeah.
do you regret it? Is a good question.
Well, I would say this just in general. It's never wrong to like open your heart, right? And you did. You
Yeah.
fully opened your heart, and
I did.
unfortunately, it didn't have, a positive result.
Yeah.
But I think that makes you such a brave person
Yeah.
for actually taking that leap of faith sometimes, which a lot of people are very scared to do. So,
Yeah.
so
It was
again,
hard. It was very
yeah,
hard for me to do, on TV. It was something
huge.
that,
That's
I
huge.
really but whatever. Well, the good things that I've gotten from this, for example, is like, for example, we filled a classroom with like all of my fans and followers have donated and gifted to an amazing teacher who's works at an underprivileged school. And I can't wait to post the videos of all the stuff that they donated. So, there's
Love
so
that.
much amazing things that have come out from below deck that I'm doing. I'm, representing everything that I stand for and all of my values. I'm, obviously I stand with Israel. I'm always talking about the hostages.
Mhm.
And even if there's people that stand with Palestine, I let them do so on my page. I've really created kind of like a space for um, just good things to happen on my Instagram is really the goal.
And I love that. I love that
Yeah.
so
Good
much.
for
Again,
you.
it's like creating that safe space for people, and you've done that as well. So again, so many kudos to you, in everything that you've done since the show ended. Also not on Tentacle Talk, but Would you, I know
Suddenly
I'm
we're
going
off
into all of these
rough
other
book.
questions, which I'm sorry about. But would you consider doing reality television again?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I definitely have
Okay.
some things in the works, and
Okay.
I want to keep doing reality TV and using my platform for important things, for good things. And if there can be any message that comes out of this amazing podcast that I did with you guys is, let's all be nicer, better, and more caring people.
Listen, thank you for the compliment as well, but really this is you, you know what I mean? And that's who I think you are as a person. So keep doing that.
Well,
And we want to
Yeah.
see you on reality TV. That's
Yeah.
hell yeah.
a
Well,
lot
and I
of
would say
people
for
want
me
to.
too, when I met you, I mean, you two, so, Alex was a primary on your season. You knew each other, you had a prior friendship. He got invited to your lovely, delicious birthday party, and,
Yeah.
I came as a plus one, but we had never met in person before. And I can't say enough about how kind and welcoming and gracious you were letting this human being you had never even had a conversation with into your life in this situation that was personal to you and celebratory. And you could not have been more lovely. So, I always say, like, as far as human beings go, we can make assumptions based on what we don't know. But at the end of the day, we have to go with our personal experience, and no complaints on my end thus far. I thank you for being so kind and welcoming that day. I truly had a lovely time.
I'm glad you came.
We all did.
Oh,
I agree. And I
We all
agree.
did.
yeah.
Even those flowers in the background, those are some pretty fun flowers.
They're
They're
alive.
like
I
hanging by a thread, those flowers.
I remember those flowers for sure. Well, we have
We
two
could do a
questions.
dried flower moment,
Yeah,
expose.
I love
Yeah.
it. Yeah, I'm so happy that they're
Alex, you
so.
were carrying these flowers
I
around.
was carrying those flowers till no end. I was like, we're gonna get these safe and sound on the boat. We're gonna get
And
them
what
back to
about
your
Jill
house.
Zarin showing up to my birthday
Oh my
party?
God. So Jill, what a
That
wonderful,
was a moment. So, and
yeah.
that was another thing, like when Jill Zarin came out, so many negative comments were made about Jill Zarin, and not a single cast member
Mm.
came out and had anything positive to say. And, I did. And so let's remember what's important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, Jill Zarin came to my birthday party. So you support
Yeah. No, and
people
I
and people
love
support
that.
you. And that's
Yeah.
how this should go.
I love
People
that.
supporting people.
And when you show up for other people, they show up for you. And I
They
think
show up for you.
that's
Yeah.
huge too, right?
It was iconic to have Jill at my
Oh
party.
my God, I know. I was like, oh, look, and there's Gary over in the corner too.
Jill
I
and
mean,
Gary, I couldn't. I
it
was
was,
like,
I mean, it
no
was,
way. I used to
was,
watch them on TV when I was 14 years old, 15 years old. I used to
yeah,
watch her on The Housewives.
yeah. I mean, I
Now she's
think
at my
that's
birthday party. Hello?
exactly. I mean, you looked around, you're seeing Ellie, you're seeing Katie, you're seeing, Camille's there. Like, there's so many. I mean, to
Good
me,
people.
yeah, like it's just
Yeah.
in some ways it's like surreal because it's people you've seen on TV, but in other ways it's like, yes, they are real people and they're really awesome. And so again, it's like that kind of like blurry line between reality TV and real life
In
sometimes.
real life, yeah.
I
Well,
love
and I'll
it.
say the same thing for Ellie, who I know is your friend. Like, whatever fallout she may or may not be getting right now, which is none of my business. And I did watch her on, the season. But when I met her personally as well, could not have been friendlier, kinder, more
She's lucky.
welcoming.
Mm.
So we don't know everything about a human
No.
being based on a small snapshot of what gets published in the
And
media.
a lot is circumstantial. You're in a high
Yeah.
stress situation. You're not sleeping. People are ganging up against you. It's more than anybody could really, really imagine.
Yeah.
I've said this before, but there are some comparisons of like Below Deck Med this season, like and like parallels to your season. So like in some capacity, Ellie is almost like a Barbie. Like, does that
Mhm.
make sense? Like in
Me
terms of,
and me and her have spoken many times about how our seasons are very similar, and in
Mhm.
yeah,
many they're also very different, right? We're very different people,
yeah,
but they have a lot of similarities, and me and her get on like a house on fire. So,
yeah,
whatever she did on the show, I don't judge. Whatever I did, she doesn't judge.
Yeah.
Because if you're just judging on these one bad things that happen here and there, then you're never really going to get to know the person. I judge them, like I said, for who they are off the show. After the
I
Yeah,
show
love
airs,
that.
when you're famous, when
Doing the
you're
show.
getting all
Yeah.
this stuff, how are you acting with your platform is how I'm judging you.
And
yeah, sure.
I'll say this too. I've had some wonderful conversations with Ellie and like, like good 10 minutes solid, keep talking conversations.
I
And
love it.
she is amazing. Like she really
Yeah,
is an amazing
it really is.
individual and she works hard and you can tell that. So we'll close the Ellie piece out, but we
All
have two more questions of this I
right.
want to get to. So look at that. We really went off thread, off tentacle talk here,
Well,
but
we normally do. This is
yeah,
what
I know.
happens. This is what happens because we're actually friends. So it feels
Yes,
like we're just,
exactly.
talking
Yeah.
and
I just feel like we're like sitting at a bar drinking right now, which is great. Like we're just like completely being ourselves. So this one is what did you think of the location? Grenada.
I thought it was nice. Honestly, I wish I would have done the Mediterranean. I think those locations are just way more beautiful. But
Greece.
Grenada was nice.
Yeah, I mean, listen, people know that was my first time ever out of the country.
Crazy.
Wild to think that you go on a reality TV show for the first time you
The
ever leave
first
the
time out of the
country.
country.
I mean, it's a great
Can't
home
make that
video.
up.
You can't that go big or go home. I guess that's the saying there. Um, and the final tentacle, which is who from your season would you most want to grab a drink with and why?
Paris.
Oh yeah.
Paris. I grabbed drinks with her. We did Watch What Happens Live together. I love that girl. I wish she was there the whole season. I would have been way less angry. Amazing. I really, really love that girl.
I mean, it really would have changed things, right? Like
Everything.
had she
More of a
been there.
support system
She
sooner.
would not have let that go down the way it went down. In fact, she didn't. The first day she got there, I mean, not to bring up old stuff, but Paris is amazing.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing that I'll say about Below Deck and in particular your crew team. I would have hoped going into a situation like that people would have walked out feeling bonded and like a family. And so I wonder if this is a true family because a lot of families don't get along and there's so much dysfunctionality in families, right? That
There's
makes me
always an
think,
aunt who gets canceled at some
yeah,
point.
Yeah.
it makes
I'm the
me,
crazy aunt.
yeah, but
No.
it makes me think like you're almost like brothers and sisters in some capacity, right? Where, you're fighting with each other and you bicker and you kind of go back and forth with each other. But at the end of the day, maybe there is still some sort of love in terms of the experience that you went through, in terms of this once in a lifetime thing that only that set of people know that they went through together. What do you think about? I mean, are you okay with being a
I think
dysfunctional?
that's what we have with the Below Deck girls here in Miami. I think that's
Yeah,
what me, Ellie, Ariana, Katie, I think that's what we have. Elizabeth, that's what we have here. We have that shared mutual, even though we didn't have it together, we had it
right.
separately.
That's that.
And I
Yeah,
have that kind of, maybe with Chef Tony or Paris, there's some people from the show that, yeah, but they choose to prioritize the hatred part of it, the drama part, the parts that don't matter anymore, and so
right.
that outweighs the value of the experience for most of the people, at least with me.
If you ever had the opportunity to come on this podcast again with Kyle and kind of have a talk with him, would you do it?
I think that this is the last time I speak about Kyle. I think that,
Okay.
this is what I said, what I had to say. And, if he continues and he continues, I'm not going to keep reacting to him. I just really had to get it off my chest because I'm so upset.
Closure. It
But
feels like
Sorry,
closure.
this
girl.
is the last time that I give him the space to upset me.
Okay. And I want to, Meredith, any final words that or questions that you might have, and then we're going to direct it over to Barbie because I want to give you like the final say of this Realitypus episode.
Yeah, I mean, I think just for me, like I said before, even an angel from heaven would not come out of reality TV unscathed. And I can't imagine how hard it must be for anyone, but let alone if something goes down that you didn't anticipate, like what happened on your season, and it's out of your control, and you're just doing the best you can in this like chaotic, wild environment. And I cannot imagine how difficult that must be post filming, but I give you props for taking the high route and trying to make the best of it. And in conclusion, don't read the comments ever. Anyone, we don't read the comments.
Those damn
You know, the
comments.
comments are nice to me. Yeah, the comments are nice to me. The people are very nice to me. I
Good.
get more love than I get hate, and I'm thankful for that. And it's probably because that's what I give more than what I spew. So I guess that's what I want to end this with. Let's spew love and not hate. And I love you guys.
We love you back. You know that that's like from a place in my heart.
Thanks for letting
Like,
me vent.
I'm
And
so
another
grateful.
thing, I don't know why they start with me when they know I'm going to talk back.
Oh my God.
Right?
Listen, I'm
We
glad.
don't roll over and die in this family.
Yeah, not this one. No way. Well,
I thought now that I turned 30, I would, but like maybe 31 is the year.
Who cares?
with that said, happy birthday again. This has been a
Thanks.
wonderful, again, catching up with you. You
Yeah,
know,
it's
I'm always here if you ever need anything, because that's the kind of friendship that we have with each other.
likewise.
And this has been an amazing kind of breaking news with Barbie special edition episode of Realitypus. Thanks for everybody that's listening. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at Realitypus, and also follow Barbie on Instagram. Barbie, tell us your Instagram one more
And
time.
keep loving on that Barbie. Sorry, I talked over you. Go ahead.
It's Barbie Pascual.
Awesome. Well, thank you again to everybody listening. And if you have any questions, please send us either an email at realitypus@gmail.com or send us a DM on Instagram, and we will see you the next episode. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys.